Halloween season is in full swing now. They got the 4 big main events going on in Los Angeles County, if you want to include the haunted hayride in that.
Bruh.
You've got 3 big main events going on in Los Angeles County, that being Six Flags Fright Fest, Universal's Halloween Horror Nights, and Knott's Berry Farm's Knott's Scary Farm 50th anniversary. So I figure now's as good a time as any to try to answer that big question that has been looming over everybody's mind, and that is, did Knott's deliver on its 50th anniversary? This year is a very big milestone for Knott's Berry Farm, and there was a lot of pressure put on them, obviously, from people like me and others that expect only the best. 50 years is a long time. That longevity really gives you time to establish yourself and establish your reputation and really find out what makes you so great. So, did Knott's Scary Farm deliver in 2023? So far, I think they did. Andrea and I went last night. We did not do everything, but the things that we did do, I would consider an A to an A+. We did 7 mazes. We went through all the scare zones. We didn't see any of the shows yet. But just comparing this to its predecessor up north in LA County, this just seemed like it was run much better. I don't know what's going on at Universal, but it seems like every year they are either selling more tickets or the crowd control is just getting worse and worse. This year, it's gotten a little bit out of hand, and a lot of people, it's not just me that's noticing, they're shutting down general admission lines at 8 o'clock at night, 8:30 at night, because the lines are just getting too long. The event claims to be sold out, but it seems like it's sold double. When we went to Knott's, we expected it to be just as chaotic. We expected a lot of content creators, YouTube personalities, and social media influencers to basically be taking over the park. Now, while at Johnny Rockets, they did have their big media event there, they had the banquet, it seemed to still be even-keeled. It was controlled. I'll start from the beginning. Because of what we thought was going to happen, we decided not to show up early and try to fight that crowd to get in the front of the pack and get footage of the opening ceremony. We showed up around 6-ish, and they had already started letting people inside the park, and they'll just let them kind of hang out in the front there. The big difference, at the front gate, Knott's had clear lines to stand in. Every gate had a line to stand in. Universal was just chaos. As soon as you got through the security gate, it was just a blob of people. Good luck, you know. So it just seemed like Knott's kind of had their stuff together as far as that. Still being there the time we were, it wasn't overly crowded. We still got a good view of at least the Green Witch up on the roof. Obviously, we didn't see anything that happened in Ghost Town. We didn't see any of the monsters emerge from the fog or anything. But that's okay. There's time for that. We'll definitely be able to go and see that at one of these days. They started pretty much on time. From what I noticed, Horror Nights did not. We didn't get in the gate until... They didn't even start letting people in those gates until maybe 15 minutes after the gates were supposed to open. One thing that I did hear was the Chilling Chambers was not open right away. So, and there was... I'll get to this later, but that whole kind of corner of the park seemed to have its fair share of issues. Now, because Chilling Chambers was closed, when they opened the park up, everybody kind of made a beeline for Cinema Slasher and Room 13. So Cinema Slasher, because Chilling Chambers was closed down, got all the traffic that went through the Gauntlet up through Fiesta Village, and it all kind of merged into the line there. So Cinema Slasher got 2/3 of the crowd. Again, this goes to crowd control. The line moved real quick. Granted, the conga line effect was in full force in Slasher Cinema. Cinema Slasher, I'm sorry. It took us probably 15 to 20 minutes to get through that maze the first time. Not complaining about that because it's a great maze. The design was really well done, but there was a lot of stop and go. And I think a lot of that is just because people want to take their time. But the issue is you miss a lot of the scares that way when you're kind of just on the outside looking in the room. That maze is worthy of going again, though, so we will do that again. One thing that really did stink was Accelerator didn't make it. It ended up running into more issues with the launch system, so now who knows? Who knows when that ride's going to open back up? They're going to have to test it from the beginning again. In Camp Snoopy, they had their one new scare zone, which was the Gauntlet. When I went earlier in the week, I saw a lot. Actually, over the course of the last few weeks, there was a lot of lights, and there was a lot of fog machines that were being set in that area for that scare zone to kind of come to life at night. And none of it worked. I guess it was they were having issues with it. So Camp Snoopy was just a black hole. The scare actors did their best to kind of make up for it, and there was a lot of scare actors. A lot of people were saying that that place was devoid of scare actors, but we ran into a lot. While we didn't run into the King or Queen or the Jester, I don't think. Oh no, we did run into the Jester. That was one of the first people we ran into up by the stage. Hopefully they get that all fixed by the end of the weekend, because that really will help kind of complete the event that they've got going now, because that really was what I noticed the only issue within the park. All of the other mazes that we went in were running full force. There were, some animatronics down here and there. They were all full of scare actors. The scare actors had a lot of life. The street performers were going crazy. The clowns, I feel like they took a second to get going, probably because they had to kind of find their footing a little bit. But that scare zone, once again, is probably, in my opinion, the MVP of the whole event. You could spend an entire night just hanging out on the boardwalk and watching the carnival clowns. I know that's a bit of a hot take. People prefer Goring 20s. The mazes, for the most part, were, especially for this being the opening night. Now, it being a Thursday may have handicapped it a little bit, but Grimoire, Room 13, and Origins were the three mazes that had deep lines all the way up until we left. We left at about 11. Those lines never went down. Grimoire went down to about 45 minutes by the time we left, but it was still a long line. So 3 out of the 10 mazes were running strong. The other 7, we pretty much walked on all of them. Cinema Slasher being the one, obviously, that we didn't, but we got there first, and everybody else had the same idea we did. The mazes have a third dimension to them. While they get compared a lot to the mazes at Halloween Horror Nights, and production-wise, they kind of hold their own. Obviously, they don't have Universal Studios' budget, but they do have a big budget, and they do have an established team to make the event great. I feel like Universal Studios has kind of hit a wall with their creativity. The mazes now have a tendency to be room, loud hissing noise, and a strobe light, monster pops out, hallway. Room, loud hissing noise, strobe light, monster pops out. They really utilize that big, and don't get me wrong, that's where that gets your heart going. But I feel like that's just their go-to for everything. I get it that that's the essence of a haunted house, is jumping out and scaring you. But there's something that's charming about the natural sound of the scare actor saying something to you, or screaming at you, or, just not needing the assistance of production all the time. The old mazes got their tender loving care. We watched them really work on the depths all year long. And while they couldn't seem to get the little bog area that you walk through with the green laser light, they couldn't get that fog thick. They still had plenty of scare actors in there. The story was told well, and I don't think I ever jumped as high as I did for that shark. I knew it was there, and it still caught me off guard. Dark Entities it's limping its way to the finish line, but it's going to go out strong. There's a lot of people that have that at the bottom of their list of favorite mazes, and it's surprising that it's made it this far to begin with. But this year, I think, is its best year. All in all, I'm not going to go into a super large diatribe about how much better Knott's was than everything else or anything like that, because Knott's this year is a very different event. This year is dedicated to being just a love letter to the last 50 years. It's just oozing with callbacks and nostalgia. And I feel like it delivered on that front. I think it did its job. Chilling Chambers, it doesn't even need scare actors, I feel. That just walking through that maze, I had the biggest smile on my face. And I didn't go through a lot of the mazes that are featured in there. A lot of those are before my time. The food. Knott's went all out with their Scary Farm menu this year, too. There's so much food to try. I don't think we're going to be able to get all of it. We did, however, try the French onion bagel burger at Coasters last night, and it was good. We obviously, it's on the meal plan for regular park hours, but not at Scary Farm. However, we also were told that we weren't allowed to use our drink pass, but then we found out later that we could use our drink pass at Scary Farm, just not the meal plan. So, I don't know. There's still a lot of things that need to be worked out on the communication front there too. There's a huge menu of food that it's going to take multiple visits to try to get through half of this menu. And that's just the stuff that sounds appealing to me. Another thing that was a pretty divisive subject, actually, was the lanterns. Mine was pretty much dead by the end of the night. It's kind of on its last leg now. We didn't really run into a lot of the interactive parts. We found 2 or 3 of them. And then we noticed a lot of the color changing in the mazes. The scare actors were really good at recognizing it and interacting with it. The conductor has a little spiel with it where he kind of takes it from you and just say it's dead. But a lot of people didn't like them. A lot of people say that they're too bright, that they're too distracting, especially inside the mazes. I mean, obviously this isn't something that Knott's is going to keep around. This is a special thing for this year. I personally liked it. I had fun carrying it around like a 10-year-old boy. It added an extra element to kind of keep my attention. And it made the event a little different. So it wasn't, real strong one way or the other as far as the opinions on these lanterns. The Nobu necklace, those things are super bright and they get your attention real quick. I haven't talked to any of the scare actors about them. I didn't really notice much of a difference with people walking around with them. But both of those things seem to work out okay. Granted, this is the first night of many, so let's give it time. let's let people, start to learn to love or hate it. We hope to see you there one of these nights at one of these events. We've got a lot of events we got to do still, all the way up until Halloween night itself. Until then, we'll catch you next time.